And I want to welcome everybody to our fifth event in the Graveler series, Practical Applications or Practical Implementation of Serious Games in Higher Education. So this is a topic that we are all involved with in different areas. Some of us are educators, some of us are serious games enthusiasts, developers, and we'll be talking more about that. We'll have a presentation today, and then we'll have a time for discussion where it's very open to share your ideas and your questions. And before I introduce our guest speaker today, I also want to say that we will have our first experience on our Moodle Pro today, where we can join the Graveler community there. That's also a self-learn module where you can learn more about how to implement Graveler for your own teaching and just learn game-based learning strategies for your own teaching. So it kind of goes beyond Graveler in that sense as well for those who are interested. And feel free to post questions you have in the chat, and we'll have a time for questions after the presentation. And please let me know if you would not like to be included in the uploaded video. We'll be putting this on our YouTube channel. And without further ado, Isaac Pante is a Swiss game designer and writer, winner of the 2019 FEMS Prize. That's a literary award given once every 4 years by the Sandeau Family Foundation, La Fondation Edouard et Maurice Sandeau. He is a lecturer in digital culture and publishing at the University of Lausanne, Switzerland. And through the Game Lab, which he co-founded in 2016 at the University of Lausanne, he promotes the study and development of gaming in all its forms and in the academic world. He is also an active member of the CV's Game and Play Studies community on Discord. So we're partner universities, which is exciting. And he is hosting an exciting summer school on gamification from knowledge to play, microbes, and health. So thank you for being here, Isaac.
Hello, Theo. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, everybody. I'll try to share with you a lot of things, but it will be quite short. So it will be different little spots about what is the Game Lab, what I'm doing in my teachings, and also what our students are doing. As you said, and as you know, maybe for us, the topic of the health is really, is one of multiple topics. So we have a special summer school on that. I'll talk about this a little later. But let me start maybe with a little background, because I think it's quite interesting and important to know where we come from. In the last years, I've discovered, working with a lot of people, that it was really mandatory to have a clear conscience from where we're coming, and it can really help working with different partners. So just to say, I'm teaching in this section des sciences du langage et de l'information. It's a special setting, actually, because it's a department of informatics inside a faculty of arts. So you have to consider the publics we have is quite diverse. We have people doing our section, but we have also people doing just one teaching they select from us because they're interested, and coming maybe from literary fields or studying cinema, and really a broad range of interests. So what it means especially is that when I present that kind of equations to my students, I get that kind of result. So, and I think it's quite important, actually, and it's not a weakness. It's not a weakness at all. It's more a strength. And I think that if we have been able to use so many different strategies and create so many things, is because we had to adapt every time to our public. So yeah, I think that's really important, and that's from that place that I'm talking to you. In interest, just for you to know, in my research, I'm especially interested in network analysis, especially on choose your own adventure games. And also, as you said, I'm also a game designer, so I have an experience in creating video games, but not only. And you'll see in that talk that it's really important for the Game Lab to not limit ourselves to digital games. And it's really central, also because in certain contexts, it's not the best way. And with some public, it's not the best tools. So I have some insights on that too. So the Game Lab Lausanne, just to give you some information about it, it's actually it's a group d'études. So it's just persons at the beginning, which met and said, isn't it sad that we're not studying video games, considering that we are studying partly informatics, partly cinema, and that this topic is totally forgotten in our field? And we said, yes, we have to change that. And so we just joined and then created a Twitter account. And from there, it's just rushed. I mean, we had a lot of interest from academia saying, oh, finally, persons here working on that. We have a lot of topics. And by the way, the medical world was one of the more interested. Is it about addiction? Is it about transmission? Is it about pedagogy? So yeah, well, it was quite huge response from the beginning, which means that we had a lot of partnership from there. So here you have a little selection of things we did with different innovative formats, going from play conferences where we use the video game played by somebody to comment, for example, and address some specific issues or subjects or topics going from social sciences to more technical subjects, but also kinds of game jams or in contexts in which we help people to create video games and try also to um, make it a shareable thing. I mean, we are not the experts on this. We are here to learn with you, and you'll see that it's really at the center of our vision. We also created a lot of international conferences, going from teaching to more specific subjects, especially on history of gaming and on languages of video games. What is the ludic grammar? What are those specificities? And yeah, there will be other objects as well. And I think that every time what is really important for us is not to stay only on the academic field, but also be sure that we have a social impact. So here we have an example with the Mystère de l'UNIL, which is an event we have each year in the university. And it's actually something called Kinderuni, ich glaube. Das ist the 2 days when we have a lot of classrooms coming to discover some things. And for us, it's so I have a teaching especially on the development of video games, in which we help students to create their own game, but not only on the technical part, but also on game designing and trying to fit with the annual theme. In 2024, it was the health. So that's why a lot of games I'll show you later are from this event. And also it's open to the public, so we have families coming during these days. It's quite a huge event, and it's really a place where everybody learns. I mean, students, children, but also us in confronting if our teaching strategy is right and if our artifacts, video game artifacts, are right too. So here you have an example for this, and I'll give you the links if you're interested in that kind of setting. We also have a summer school, which you quoted earlier, from knowledge to play, microbiome health. So this one is taught in French. We discussed about that. The idea was to also get our African colleagues to attend and to be sure that we can have higher level of discussion with the people there, but the idea is it will certainly make other summer schools also in other languages. So, but just for you to know that I'm planning this with a person I think you should meet if it's not done yet. It's Gilbert Grub, my colleague, which is director of the Institute of Microbiology of the CHUV, so the hospital. And he made a game, maybe you learned about it. It's called Crops, and there's a new version now. It was funded also by the FNS, so the agency who helps the research with funding. And it's board game, card game that he actually uses in his teaching with his students to help them learn the microbes. And he also opened it more broadly to general public who can directly buy it and have an application. So as you see, it's ever the same thing that we do something for our students, but every time with an impact outside. So here you have, I think, an overview of the planning. I'm just share this dia not to really take time on it, but just to give you an idea of what I think is quite our structure of quite everything we do. Is take a reflection on the material, the tooling we're using, but also the social context, and going also on the mechanics and the narratives. So it means that we'll have, for example, broad topics, and then a day especially allowed and concerning game design, a day especially concerning techniques, and finally a day especially dedicated to mediation. So, and you'll see that it's part of also all my different teachings. Last thing about this context, maybe, since we're talking about health, we are also heavily concerned with the health issue of our Earth. So we are also in durability things. And here are an example of a game we are developing for an exhibition coming next week. Called Planet Jeu, about the impact of video gaming, but also board gamings in terms of creating artifacts, reusing it, and so on, to try to augment increase the consciousness of the population on that kind of practices and what is better to buy or to rent and so on. So that's it for the game lab. There should be a lot of other things to say, but I won't make longer on this subject. But maybe on pedagogy and philosophy, or the philosophy of this kind of pedagogy. So I think that yeah, I share this book of Ananthropy. Maybe a lot of persons here already know this quite manifesto, which really defends the idea that there has been a turn in video games, in people creating and consuming video games. And I think, and we think that it's a really good turn. I mean, with, as you see here, freaks, normal, amateur, artists, dreamers, dropouts, queers, housewives, and people like you are taking back an art form. And I think that's really what we aim to do here. And it's part of the philosophy of what we want to achieve. So what does it mean? It means that whatever the context, what we want to have with our public is increase their self-confidence. And it's not really easy because you have to consider that, that especially in video gaming, the gender issues are quite high. So when you want to have female students to code, for example, you have to break a wall to begin. And it's no use to arrive with really high level or maybe really technical softwares, because you're losing persons in that. So the idea is And it means that you also have to adapt your teaching to the people you have in the room. And in our case, it's really, really heterogeneous. So you have people coming there just for one teaching. You have people who have a quite solid background in informatics and want for more programming. But it's really important for us to stay really open on the form and to go take the cultural power of those students, because it's not that uncommon to have students who have considered they have no, for example, video game culture because they're just in books and so on. But they have really high culture in diverse fields, and they don't think that maybe it's useful for that because they think that it's another realm, absolutely. So the idea is to say, okay, maybe you haven't played that many video games, but maybe you've played board games, and even if you don't have played board games, you have read books, you haven't seen films and so on. And here you see narration, narrative mechanics. So actually we meet the people where they are, and then we help them to go from there. And I think that's quite a great difference from what I see in different contexts, where when you have a more homogeneous people and population, you say, okay, we know that everybody have done that kind of formation, so let's start with that tool, and it's one tool for all, and we're doing the same kind of things. This also means that I'm not a huge fan of delegation, and I think that's maybe the biggest topic of conflict sometimes. It means that if you want to really empower the people, you have to give them almost every power. That means that it's not, okay, I'm making the assets and you're making the coding, or you're making the story and I'm making the coding, or etc. etc. It's even more important to keep this in mind, that there you see really the gender roles reappearing. If you say, okay, make groups of people, then you'll soon have more female characters saying, I'll take the narrative part, or maybe the design part, and you have guys doing the coding. And it's really something you have to break if you see that it happens. So the fact to use really light tools is to be sure that nobody can be left out on every topic, okay? So for theory and practice. And this means also that you have to adapt every time. So it means that if you have a class that is quite high on competencies, really skilled on one topic, it means that you maybe spend all your time giving game design because they're totally at ease with coding. And maybe it's the other way around. And if it's not the case, and if you have mixed class, then you will have to make specific teaching to everyone and go on a kind of project setting. It means also that you have to really help students. It is not quite easy to focus on their feelings and feelings regarding themselves, but also feelings regarding the others, so empathy. When you're creating a video game, and my colleague David Javet really is has, I think, really interesting thoughts about this. You're working on empathy, actually. You want to have people to feel something, and it's not really easy, I think, to have students at an academic level to focus on their feelings. And I think it's really something you have to re-say. But what are you feeling when you're doing that? What people are feeling when you're making them do that kind of thing? And what is your aim? What do you want people to feel? Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's annoyance. Maybe it's wrath. It's no problem actually, but it has to be taught. It's not just have fun. It's not because it's video games that you have to have fun. And that's quite a pitfall we can see sometimes with this idea that I'm here to play, so I'm here to have fun, I'm here to have candy colors every time. And no, maybe not. Maybe it's something different, and we have to think about that. Okay, so it means that when you take this kind of approach, actually you're melding everything. It doesn't mean that we don't know that each kind of setting have its own weaknesses and strengths, but it means that for me, if I have students in my teaching rooms, they can make choose your own adventure games, they can make board games, they can make a role-playing game, or they can do video games. And we let that open at the beginning to let them really adapt the kind of game they want to make with the kind of feeling they want to produce to their players. So talking about tools yet, what are we using? Well, if so I have different teachings, and just to I think you know a lot of them, but just for you to know, in interactive fiction, for example, I use Twine, Ink, Bitsy, and RenPy, depending again on the objectives of the students. And sometimes these kind of tools can be a fallback for students who maybe came for video game development teaching, which is maybe a little more heavy on the technical side, but yeah, they're not really at ease with that technology. That's not what we want. So we say, okay, you know what? Uh, let's go make a game in Twine, or let's go make a game in Bitsy. Because at the end of the day, that's the same kind of logic. You'll have your first experience, and maybe you'll make something really great, which happened a lot actually, to not have this kind of technical wall. For more broad video game development, I'm really fond of Kplay JS, which was Kaboom before. We had prizes with this one. I really love this platform, so I don't have the time to explain you why I love it, but I think if you're interested in game dev, it's really a tool to consider, especially because in that context, um, as you see on the Mystère de l'Unil and other contexts, what is really important for us is to be able to share it in a really large way, and with the minimal setting on the client side. So, I mean, here you're just in the browser. We are on HTML5 and JavaScript technologies. So you're sure that if you're going in a museum, like we'll do next week, or you're going actually everywhere, even in classes where sometimes, for example, in college, where they have a hard time having an informatic room, for example, and it's really difficult to install something. Here is quite easy. You say, you just go on that page and you access to everything. It's really a winning strategy from the last years. And then sometime we also, because I also have a game teaching on VR and ER, we have students who use a frame and for the more skills one, 3GS, to create experiences to also there, or go in a gaming situation, or more in a experiential way, not experimental, but really experiential. And I'll give you an example there of this kind of setting. So examples. So you see what we've done those last years. So it's just a selection, evidently, but I think it gives you a little overview of the kind of settings we can have. So maybe the first one, which is quite an exception, has been developed in Unity. And it came from the summer school. We had a student, Daniel Talman, who attended, and it's not the summer school from this year, but from the last year. And he was really interested in that topic, and created a game in that context, where the objective is really to feel what is it. So here you see again this theme of empathy. what does it means to live with schizophrenic effects and feelings, and to have to switch between those two realities and it's a game about blending those realities and making choices to find the right way to minimize your symptoms and live with that kind of settings. The other one are really teachings made in games made in the courses, usual courses. So here, for example, you have an example of Fix It, a game made with Capla.js by Melissa Mati and Amina Mat, two students of mine. And here the idea, because I think it's also part of the health condition, because it's about sexisme and in les ateliers mécaniques de vélo. So I'm not sure I can translate that, but it's a bicycle repairing context. And you have, as a woman, you have people coming and saying, I want to see the manager, for example, which is intended to be a man. And you see here that some pixel art, different mechanics. All these games are playable, so I don't have the time here. I'm just giving a little overview for you. But the idea here was to have a really impactful context. Is it to fix the conversation, actually? So it's not about repairing the bicycle, but to fix the conversation with containing toxic sentences. And you have two choices. Are you okay with what is said, or are you not okay? If you're okay, you fix it. If you're not okay, you bash the client, for example. So, and I'm talking about this game especially because he won a prize in 2023. So we have an national competition here on Swiss video game industry. And there's a category especially aimed at people in that kind of context, academic context or teaching context. And yeah, it was quite amazing because in front of us, we had really schools totally aimed at video game development. And he won because of the narrative, because of the empathy, because of a lot of those elements I presented before. Other example to see that it's not only video games. Here you have a project created by Cindy Tang, which is really related to health on immunology. And in that case, it was made by my encadré. I don't know how you say that. So the person working on that with the student were David Javet and Yannick Rochat. And they helped her to create these systems to really, in classrooms, discover the immunology. And here you see that they selected this kind of board game scenario because they wanted to have a collaborative game. They wanted to have something that can be learned quite quickly and that can be deployed in this classroom without relying on computer room, for example. So that's another example of that broad range of topics. And here you have another example made by Jeremias Kuhn, Depression in VR. So it's a one-room experience. You can experiment it on your computer or in a VR headset. And what you see here actually is the kind of room students here have in a building named the Vortex, which is just near there. And it's quite a really low interactive experience. You can just move in that room, just sit on your computer, and you hear somebody banging at the door and saying, "Hey, come with us. It's a long time you're inside there." And it's all about experimenting something. So it's really low in mechanics, but I think it's really quite a piece of art and quite a great experience. And it doesn't requested a lot of programming skills, actually. I mean, the student is more skilled than the project he created. And for me, most of the time, it's quite a good indicator that there was a great reflection on game design. And here with Twine, a little enhanced with JavaScript, you have another game named Équilibre au quotidien. It's quite difficult to share it in with another image because it's really an interactive fiction. So that's a lot of text written in French. But it's about diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and what is it to live one day with that kind of condition. And actually, it's most of these projects are really coming from true feelings, I mean, or because the person is concerned by the condition, or because the developer knows somebody who is concerned by the condition and really want to share something. So yeah, that was just a little overview of those. I think I'll stop there so we can have more time for the conversation. But yeah, I can't wait to hear your questions.
Thank you so much, Isaac. This was a wonderful, well organized, and visually very pleasing presentation. I'm sure we've all got a lot of ideas and questions as well. So we have a range of people here who are thinking about games for a range of fields and also involving students practically in that, whether it's as student assistants, where you have a few that are working with you, or if you have a whole class activity where they can go deeper into the material through game creation. So let's open up the floor for questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. It was so wonderful, and I love the games you showed us. And I wonder if you have some kind of game studies at your university. So there's the game studies in German. In Germany, we have that at some universities, and it's focused on like gender, sexism, racism, and such things in games. Do you have that also at your university? Because these games showed some of this focus.
Actually, it's quite the game lab.
Okay.
So when we started with that kind of interest, we started to. I think what we are really seeing here is quite the birth of a discipline here.
Mhm.
So as it happens quite commonly, you try to push the walls from where you are. So I'm from informatics, so but in that specific context, it's okay to push the walls and to start saying with my teaching to my students what is interactive fiction, because it's literature, but it's also informatics. But we have quite made a lot of way in that field. So in our department, I'm really pleased to say that we were able, with the help of the faculty, to create a specific chair about video game teaching. So it opens the way to partner with other on game studies. Also on the history of video games and history of machines, computers, and so on. And next week, I'll be able to really share more, but I can share it right now. But we'll have a new study plan at November. A 30 credits study plan named working in the field of games and video games. And it's aimed at people making a master, but making a master with specialization. And it implies a lot of partnerships with our, I don't know, museums, other institutions, working on the more historical side, or maybe interested in mediation, pedagogy. So yeah, that's quite a huge step. When I was president of the department here, it was also important for me to give more room to that video game topic. And that means that we changed the study plan, because before it was just, optional teachings that students attended and loved. But it was, yeah, then it's important to make it shine in a different way, to be also more visible, and to have a structural impact. So right now in our plans, we have modules totally dedicated and named video game. It's not anymore an infiltration or a kind of hacking, if you want. And we're not alone, actually. So there's a game lab, but in other faculties, you have people, for example, in psychology, we have a colleague, Joël Bilieu, who works a lot about using, for example, role-playing games in different contexts, or testing the impact of video games, and so on and so on. So yeah, it's I mean, the Game Lab is quite wide, but it's quite clear also that there's a momentum on video games right now. And we have a lot of colleagues who weren't absolutely interested in that field. And we still have, in some context, to convince that video games is not just guns and cars, but
Yes.
it's quite middle age thinking. But yeah, depending on your practice, maybe you never met that kind of creation. So yeah, so we have a part that we could be really named game studies, and we have colleagues working on that. But it's most the game lab, and you have to know that the game lab is not I mean, it's a group. It's nothing more than that. We don't have cash, and we actually don't want it because we avoid a lot of power struggle with that. So it's more really a group where people come, and in French, we have this expression that is le buffet canadien. I don't know if how it translates in German or in English, but it's that kind of table when you make an event and everyone brings something, and everybody eats something different and goes on. And that's the idea. I mean, we can't maybe pay you on something, or we can't, but you come, and we have a lot of person, for example, on intermediate, we call that core intermediate, PhD, or aspiring PhD, who actually are really happy to find their way to escape, in a sense, their own department, and push a little the limits, and can also be more legitimate on that topic. So, and those people sometimes arrive with really specific topics, like I don't know, gender issues on game studies, for example, and then we have the memoir on that subject. Yeah. So, but I think it's coming, actually.
Awesome. Sounds so interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question from Sven.
Yeah, thank you. Isaac, with different approaches competing, different settings, different programming languages, different platforms, and so on, what are the methods you measure a kind of success of a different approach or setting? So with what measures, with what scales do you measure success? And what is your definition of a successful video game?
Actually, it really depends on what's the context of that game. I mean, if I'm in a pedagogical context, it's quite where were my students at the beginning of the class and where are they at the end. For me, if they change their conception of their identity, it's already a big win, because when you have people coming and saying, I don't know if I'm not sure if this course is really for me, because I don't. Okay, so that's already a win, and it's quite win or loss. And with that strategy, is quite every time a win. Then it really depends. I mean, if it's a project that is funded, then there you come with a specific strategy, which is experimental. Also, it could depend. It could depend with traces that you're getting directly from the game, for example, or it can be some kind of questionnaire or entretien semi-dirigé, and then you get the intel you want. If I spent a little time explaining to you the Mystère de l'UNIL, it's because for me, here we are in a soft evaluation, which is quite interesting, and it's quite harsh actually, because when you have children who comes and you want to know if your mediation was winning, it's quite easy. You ask the question at the end of the day, and you say, "Oh, so you've played this game. What did you learn?" And if they don't give you the quite easy answer you wanted, because you're looking 2 or 3 ideas, if you don't get it, you know that that is an error. You lost. But in every case, it's quite a win, because the students to whom maybe you said, I think it's quite complex. Are you sure you want to go with this? Yeah, well, I think it could be okay. Okay, let's see. And then you see that on that specific game, it didn't match so well. So that's another strategy. And then if you tell me about, I don't know, students making a memoir with me, for example, there it's really precise. I mean, so for example, they want to I have different memoir right now, and in each one you have an experimental part, which is what is your intention actually. So your intention is transmitting some idea, or maybe transmitting some kind of experience. So it will be part of your work to create the questionnaire, and we spend quite a lot of time on this, because that's not something that people who haven't done social sciences, they're not really accurate on this. I mean, making a good research and asking the good question to get the good answer for the people you're talking about, and also constructing what kind of people you have in front of you. Is it a skilled person? Is it a man, a woman? Does it matter in that context how you create the classes? That's something I really learned back in those days when I was assistant of sociolinguistics from Pascal Saint-Gy, and it was really part of that. So I consider myself quite lucky on that topic, because I can also give them that kind of knowledge without having to give a full teaching and going on a specific topic. But that's an important part. And yeah, actually, I don't have games created without a phases in which we do evaluate. For example, for the next week, it will be quite, again, harsh and simple. It's a quite big exposition, even if the place is quite small, but there's a lot of things. Do people go on our proposal? Do they step there? Do they spend time there? So we'll be there, looking at people, how they interact with the thing, look how they, and maybe we'll have a little talk directly after to know if it works, if it matched, and then we learn. And for the time after, we change this. And clearly, if it's funded research, in that case, we have a full protocol with colleagues defined. But I think that since we're not making, I mean, right now, that kind of research who use gaming to collect data. We have colleagues doing that in other fields, but I'm for pure random reasons, it's not what appeared right now. We don't really have to enter in the question of the technical side. That means, okay, if we want to get that kind of data, but could be also possible. I mean, it could be, maybe I have a mail right now proposing in that kind of setting, and would be really happy to do it, actually.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one kind of question I want to ask with regard to medical sciences and connecting the clinical side of education with games and where that comes in. We have some professionals here in midwifery sciences specifically. And so compassion is a huge thing, and understanding patients that your students will be working with in the future. So what has that process been like for you for health-related games, and how, whether connecting with experts who are helping with the material or integrating them in classes, or what has been your experience with that?
Well, actually, I'm not sure if I'm. Can you maybe try to narrow a little the question, because I'm not really sure. I think I will make you a quite broad question, and I'm not sure it's really from interest for you. Um,
Yeah, there you go. So, hello, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you to Luke that you organized this for us today. We are interested in teaching our students better skills in emergency care.
Okay.
So we have a specific goal which fits in a specific module that we teach about obstetric emergencies. And so that would be more of our focus. If empathy and so on, of course, how do I deal with the family members that are there during this emergency and so on? I mean, that component is certainly important, always important for us. But primarily we want them to learn skills.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so yeah, thank you. I'd say that the question is, what do you want to achieve? So if it's increasing the competencies of your public, because my experience is, and I think we all made this this experience too, is the best way to learn is to teach, actually. And I think that's one huge power when you say to people, create a game on that topic. Actually, they're asking themselves some kind of questions, and they have to change the point of view. And I think a lot of our power and our competencies come from that kind of position, is that we are teaching something. So first question is, could it make sense to say that, because you have that first scenario, that is the skilled people make the game and then they test it to people to gain skills and so on. So that's one way, and I'll explore this right after. But the first question will be, and I know it can be quite difficult if you don't have a lot of time in your schedule with students, but the question could really be, could we take a time to help them create a game on that topic? And so there, maybe you're afraid because you say, oh my God, if we want to create, for example, a video game, it will be a huge mess and so on. But as a counterexample, I gave 1 month ago a teaching, an atelier, a workshop on creating one-page RPGs. So maybe you're not familiar with the setting, but RPG, so playing the role-playing games. Actually, when we think to role-playing games, we're thinking of a person with a book, big book, and then people around the table and rolling dices and playing to this. Or maybe we're thinking to I'm playing the doctor and you're playing the patient. Okay. if you maybe you know that those last years the RPG scene on the board game side changed quite a lot. What does that mean? That actually you can find games in one page, so it just have to fit on one page actually. So the game must be there. So you have to have a character, you have to have some rules, you have to have some different things. And that means that if you use that kind of strategy in 2 hours, you, with a topic-oriented thing, you can say, okay, let's create a one-page RPG on obstetric issues. So we pass through those different topics. I'm sorry if it looks a little not that clear if you're not in that kind of thing, but maybe we can explain later. If we take a little more time, I can give you another example and show you how it's done. So that's for one side. The other side being we've created the game and then we want to test it with the students. Okay, so here the question is, what kind of game you want to make. One possibility being, and it's quite easily done, using tools like Twine, for example, and create an interactive fiction. So in that case, it's like maybe you know that kind of books, the choose your own adventure games, in which actually what you do is, if I open the door, I go to 31, and in the other case, I go to the other door. So that's quite good, I mean, in interactive fiction, because you really can create and write a text at the first person, saying, for example, you are an obstetrician and ta 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 ta, and then you have to make choices, and you can replay the experience. The good thing there is that in 20 minutes, you can explain to somebody how to code this and create this story. I mean, on the technical side, it's really nothing. You have a lot of videos on YouTube, and then it's about writing. So it means that a team, for example, of teachers can absolutely create their own game without relying on a dedicated team, for example. But in that case, it means that you'll have one person playing one game. And maybe that's not what you want, because maybe what you want is interaction, is fear, and then I think that you're going more in the direction of a board game. Could be a card game, or maybe a role-playing game with, I don't know, specific roles predefined, or maybe events. Try to imagine simply a role-playing game in which you have your students playing in group of 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know. And each one gets a little card saying you are, and they say what you are and what is your aim actually. And then on the table you have a deck and a deck of cards, and this deck of cards arranged in an interesting way. And those are events. For example, round 1, we have a conversation, and then tack an event's turn, and there's, I don't know, an obstetrical event, or maybe a problem on that topic. So you really have people working together, but you're injecting an experiment and an experience using a game mechanic. And it's really light, you don't have to, I mean, you can print it just before. And it's quite interesting to use that kind of strategy actually, because it means, and maybe you're aware of that, but actually, even for the durability questions, it's quite common right now to see more and more people developing games which are only on PDF, which are named print to play. So for example, if you in Tübingen, you invent a game, me in Switzerland, if I want to use it with my students, I just have to print it and to cut it. So there's no question of distribution, and maybe it can be improved at every time. And there you can share it on platforms like that's something we already made. We share it on itch.io or on Drive-Thru RPG, for example. The game I showed you before, Inner Healers, the RPG I made, for example, is shared on that platform. It's not sold. I mean, it's sold, but it's not material. And yeah, so for me, it's quite another presentation, but the subject is, what do you want people to do and to experiment? And if you want them to, for example, partner in something, have a collaborative strategy, well, it's not sure that the video game is the easiest path. Sure, you can, because you can have 5 controllers and yeah, sure, you can. But maybe it will be quite more complex if you have just 1 hour of time, if you have to do this on out of your time, I mean, which is clinical and so on. So I think the board game size and maybe the RPG side is quite something to explore, with the idea. Actually, you have people there, and you have to use them at the most. I think one of the errors, one of the biggest errors we can make making video games is consider that, and games in general, is that, and in the industry tries to make us think that the most important thing is the device. I mean, is the thing, the game, is the mechanics. Actually, a good game is something quite simple, which creates something around the table. Even if you're alone in front of your computer, you think into a lot of things. Maybe the more interesting moment is not when you're doing a lot of things, it's the thing when you're thinking about the game. And you don't need a lot of things to create that. So yeah, and just to tell you, that's something that we have to be quite aware of, because and I think that's more an issue with the more skilled people, because since they know that they can do something really amazing, they could be on the way of, let's make something big, let's make something great, let's make something. And quite commonly, that's the project that are most endangered, because there's really a risk that they create something too big, that will be too long to develop. People will lose the energy on the way. So I think that the format of, for example, one-page RPG on a game jam, in which you say, let's take 5 persons and let's make half a day on that topic with a game designer helping a little, could be more productive than something really sequential, where you say, okay, we'll create a video game that will have an impact, international impact. And sometimes the little game can be the first step to then bring it in a more computational form, and to create really a video game with funding, because you also made the proof that it was working, you know?
Thank you so much. That was extremely helpful, especially because I have no experience in video game development. So you make me feel much more confident. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isaac. So this has been a very, very helpful time together. Very briefly, at the end, if anybody has to leave, feel free to just to pop out. But I wanted to share a few upcoming announcements. We've typically we've shown in the past in our network meetings. Let's see, it's still loading. Okay, can everyone see my screen, hopefully? We've shared in the past some different demonstrations we have of there, if you can kind of think of it like a one-page digital game,
Yeah.
in the sense of something you can create quite quickly, but we use our editor, and it's kind of a no-coding editor framework for teachers. So it's something where you can create something very short, Vanessa created this particular activity where it's kind of like a one-page PDF. You have oxygen you have to find in the lungs, and then you have
Okay,
to,
great.
let me find the lungs. You have to collect the oxygen and then deliver it to the brain eventually. And then when the student plays it, they can kind of go through that. And we've had kind of found that what you can do also is embed pre-existing tools, like if you already have blood samples, a blood sample mini game or something hosted on itch.io, you can kind of embed that. So our vision for Graveler is really, in the end, to have a community where people are sharing ideas and not have to feel like they're on this journey by themselves or feel like they have to create something enormous, but rather something that is. I really like that idea of we're sitting around the table, we're getting people to discuss and having those roles.
Yeah.
So we'll be using this Moodle Pro website that we'd like to invite all of you to feel free to join, where it actually includes our self-learn modules, where you can go through and learn more about using Graveler. But it also has this, at the bottom, this community forum where we can talk about different topics. You can create your own topic. I started one about what Isaac has been sharing today, and an example database. And so in the future, we'll be kind of uploading, here's a screenshot of what we created, here's the activity summary, very short and sweet, some learning objectives, how long does it take, and then the files that you need. And so we've done just as some quick examples, biodiversity, zombie escape room in a laboratory. We had Vanessa's one that she developed about oxygenization for the brain, and then one for malaria, where you visit an area in Africa, you go into the lab, you eventually go into the body and see how malaria parasites, affect the body. So these are just some examples. So for anybody who is interested, we can send the PDF instructions on how to join this Moodle community. And
Yeah, sure.
I'll put that in the chat if it's our first time kind of experimenting with this. So, but as far as we know, all you need to do is you can self-enroll and use your email to join. And you should instantly have access to that. But what I can also do after this, after you self-enroll, I think I'll be able to add people's email directly. So
Okay, thank you.
We'll do some follow-up. Yep.
Thank you, Luke. It's really interesting. And by the way, I also wanted to tell you that so we have this summer school coming. And this summer school is an occasion to share what we've done here in Lausanne, but it's also to share diverse things from other places. So if via Luke or directly to me you want to share something, I think it's really interesting because we'll have students, but also professors from different places. So I'll share Graveler for sure, so they know that it exists. And maybe if you have other things, just don't hesitate to share it so we can share it further. And also join the Civis meeting. The Civis link. We have a Discord for this, and maybe it's the place to create new links like this one and share your things. Yeah, let's share more things.
Absolutely. I'll try to include the link for that in the follow-up email so that everyone has access to that since we are CV's partners already. And lastly, I wanted to say we have I think in next week already, we have a workshop coming up that Annie will be hosting, who is just here, our didactic consultant. And that's a little bit about how do I think through a story for a game. And you can create your own story as an example. And then the following week, on the 9th of April, you can implement that in Graveler as a practice. And that may end up being the exact game you use, or it could just be a practice for building a story. So highly recommend that people take part in that. You can just email Anne-Kathleen Steiner for the registration. It's free, of course. And then we'll have our in-person network meeting coming up in May with our Graveler game test. Great place for students and instructors to meet and connect student assistantships. And then more to come in the summer. So thank you again, Isaac, for being here.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciated your time and insight. This was a really cool event.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can't wait to talk more with all of you.